everybody. So we're going to talk to you about liberating structures. Not long ago, I didn't know what that meant. And I have Douglas here, Douglas Ferguson, to thank for introducing me to liberating structures, which has changed the way I look at facilitation, given me a new language to talk about meaningful, magical meetings. It gives me superpowers as a facilitator. And I'm a big fan of creativity and play. And liberating structures to date for me is the ultimate toolkit for me to instill creativity and play in any kind of meeting. And that's important because, Douglas, I talk to so many people and they say, I don't like meetings because most meetings suck. And I agree. Why? What makes them suck?
Let's talk about that, John. What makes meetings suck? And I love this. I love this question because at Voltage Control, we're on a mission to rid the world of horrible meetings. And I think in order to solve this problem, we need to first understand it really well, and we need to unpack it. And so, ultimately, I think it falls into a few categories. One, we frankly have too many meetings. I mean, how many of you are going from back-to-back Zoom meetings and suffering from Zoom fatigue? It's a real phenomenon. The psychologists that are already studying it. There's slow progress. We're just not seeming to get the things done. There's a real lack of inclusion, and people are stealing your time. How many of you have been in a situation where you've just seen, people call it Zoom bombing when they come in and show inappropriate stuff. I call it Zoom bombing when someone carpet bombs my calendar with a bunch of Zoom meetings. No one enjoys that, And so instead, we're gonna think about something a little different. And I love this quote from the authors of Liberating Structures. These two amazing gentlemen, Henry Manowitz and Keith McCandless. Look them up; they're fantastic. And it goes like this: Liberating Structures introduce tiny shifts in the way we meet, the way we plan, the way we decide, and the way we relate to one another. They put the innovative power, once reserved for experts, only in the hands of everyone. So we're going to unleash everyone by distributing control and giving everyone the power to shape the outcomes of the future. So this is my agenda that I like to cover when we do the full workshop. Unfortunately, we only have 20 minutes today, so we won't do the entire piece, but just sharing you a little bit under the hood. So you'll notice a big chunk of the time is spent on practicing the structures. So we want to make sure that you have hands-on time to really go deep and experience these things, because we want you to walk away proud of what you know and confident that you can go use them tomorrow. Otherwise, our job's not done.
And also, Douglas, we're now in a virtual context where attention is a metric that really matters. Like when you're in a room physically with people, like when I've done liberating structures, it's much easier to just give liberating structures a go because you're in a room. It's much easier to manage attention and measure it. Whereas in this experience, we're going to be showing people the power of liberating structures in virtual meetings. And we've really thought through some awesome ways to leverage MURAL to do that as well. So I just wanted to voice that is a nuance that really matters, because in this virtual facilitation world, managing attention is something I'm always thinking about as a virtual facilitator. And these liberating structures in a virtual context, I think, is one of the best ways to capture and control attention.
I couldn't agree any more, John. That's so spot on. And I'll also say that the thing about managing attention in the virtual space is that we have to be so much more intentional about it, because in the physical space, we could even just bump into people in the hallway and then try something out. We could be in any random meeting and go, I might try to do something a little different. In the virtual space, it's so difficult to wield these tools, and we tend to, I would say it's very often the case that people use the tools and then within the capacities of the tools, rather than sit back and be intentional about what they hope to accomplish and then force the tool to do those things. And so I highly encourage people to think about attention and how they need to manage attention and how you collect and I would say harvest that room intelligence. Super.
So Douglas, I'm curious, Liberating Structures, cool name, and it's intentional, and it's because it's much different from conventional and standard structures of meetings. Can you educate us on that?
I will certainly try, John. And I'll say this, there are 34 methods in this library, this repertoire. And one thing that I think, the name Liberating Structures often kind of confuses people because of the use of the word structure. It is a word that is overloaded. There's lots of definitions of structure. It can be a house. It can be something that holds things up. It can be something you lean on. It can be a method. It can be a tool. It can be an implement. And that's the definition that we're looking at here. So much less like design thinking is a set of methods, liberating structures is a set of methods. They refer to them as structures. And within those 34 microstructures, they seek to address the limitations of our typical structures that we typically find ourselves in. And there's lots of people using these things, everyone from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to Capital One to Merck, Microsoft, NASA, the Billing Clinic. They're one of my favorites. They have an amazing use where they cured, cured's not a great word, but eradicated MRSA. There was like rampant infections across the clinic, and anyone in healthcare knows this is no small feat. And they were able to use these ways of working together, of understanding each other and empowering everyone to come up with novel solutions. And this amazing, amazing case study. So let's take a look at conventional structures. We all are familiar with let's say the deficits of our conventional structures, such as the presentation is overly controlled, it's very uniform, and everything flows in one direction. I am going to speak and I invite you to listen. Now, when we think about the open discussion, or in liberating structures parlance, the goat rodeo, then everything is under control. It's too unstable. And because it's unstable, you have this random phenomenon that verges on the chaotic that makes it impossible to shape direction. We don't really have outcomes. Now, this might be fun if we need to just let some steam off, but we're probably not going to get any great results for the company.
It also reminds me of your typical networking event.
Right. Yeah, and it's like, I mean, are you solely investing in the serendipity of those intersections, or do you want to shape it a little more intentionally? And so liberating structures seeks to combat some of those things, and it's going to create diverse and independent relationships, and it's going to distribute control and flow from any point. It's going to let the information move organically in different directions and kind of spiral and emanate, and you get these emergent qualities. And any of you that are fans of complexity theory, liberating structures is highly complexity informed. And so these emergent qualities that are emerging out of these complex adaptive systems is very much, I would say, in the spirit, or very much a part of the design of liberating structures. So I really love this graphic. And when we plot out this continuum from one person involved to everybody involved, we can see that certain structures kind of sit on one end of the spectrum or the other. So you've got a presentation being one person involved. I'm presenting, you're listening. The status report might involve a few other people, but not really. And it's not, we're kind of handing the baton, and then you've got this managed discussion. It's kind of the same way. It's like very controlled, only a few people involved. And then you've got this like distribution of control versus centralized control, and how things span on that. So like now the brainstorming and open discussion, that starts to like really give everyone a little bit more control, but it's not really allowing everyone to be involved in the shaping of the future. Ultimately, there's always a select few that do that. Liberating structures is going to seek to optimize both of these. And I think therein lies the real magic. When this really lights off in your head and you have this aha moment that, wow, these things are designed to really create a new condition for which ideas and work to get done, that is, to me, the real secret sauce. And that's why I get
And I'm going to add to that, Douglas. It's not only really, do you mind going back to that
Absolutely.
slide? So at Voltage Control, we're all about meeting culture and getting rid of terrible meetings. But what I love about Liberating Structures is, as you can see in this graph, that it not only in one meeting allows you to have this beautiful distribution of control and contribution and a high level of participatory decision making, but that one meeting becomes contagious. And you could replace all of these words here, instead of being meeting context focused, to just business context focus. And what you're seeing in that top right is like the future of work. Like, we're seeing the companies right now that are able to embody everyone being involved with distributed control. That's a distributed workforce. And so Liberating Structures will give you the underlying sort of DNA of day-to-day work that I think over time will empower you to be just a distributed company.
Absolutely. Thanks for that point, John. And I want to get into some of the principles by which the liberating structures are governed and critiqued. And it's an ever-growing list. So there's a set of 34 now. There's a Trello board with, like, man, it must be 20, 30 more methods on it. And man, there's one of my favorites is called grief walking, and you should ask me about it another time. It's a really fantastic way to think about distribution of people and roles and cadence and turn taking. Really fantastic. And so how does the list evolve? Well, there's a set of principles, and then these are how they're governed and judged and critiqued. And so I'm going to walk through them really quickly. One is you must include and unleash everyone. And I think this is really fantastic, because what we don't want to do, and it can often be tempting, and to John's point, this is not the future of work, which is appointing a few to design an elegant and perfect solution. We're just not going to do it. Number two, we want to practice deep respect for people and local solutions. So this is about engaging in trust and not importing best practices. Because remember, this is complexity informed. Best practices do not apply. Number three, build trust as you go. So you're not going to overhelp or over-control the work of others. You're going to give them the ability to fail. You're going to cultivate that trusting relationship because you give them autonomy and shared ownership, and you can understand where those shared values can emerge. Number four, you're going to learn by failing forward. We're going to debrief every step. If you're not debriefing in your workshops, regardless of whether or not you're doing liberating structures, you're doing it wrong. I am very flexible, and I'm custom and adaptable, and I'm rarely dogmatic on much, but I'm dogmatic about debriefing. And if you're not doing it, then you're messing up. Number five, practice self-discovery within a group. So you want to make sure to not let the experts educate and tell people what to do. We have to learn and spur creativity. If the experts are always importing best practices, you will never thrive in a complex adaptive system. Number six, amplify freedom and responsibility. And we want to make sure we do not, absolutely under no circumstance, do we let rules and procedures stifle innovation. Let me repeat that. Do not let rules and procedures stifle innovation, unless it's the rule of debriefing, and it will never stifle innovation. Number seven, emphasize possibilities, believe before you see. How many people have you run into that tell you that'll never work around here? We've tried that, we've done it. So we want to focus on what's going to work. This is what we call positive deviance. If we focus on what's wrong all the time, we'll never get out of the gate. Number eight, we want to invite creative destruction and enable innovation. If you create space, if you look at your calendar and you think to yourself, what are all the things that are preventing me from getting the good work done, and you remove all of it, innovation will rush in. When you create the space, innovation comes in. Remember that. It's really important. Number nine, engage in seriously playful curiosity. And this is perhaps one of my favorites. We wrote a blog post not long ago, penned by John, and it is just fantastic to think about the child's mind and how we can tap into that. So make sure that we keep it simple by deciding in advance that we want to increase the levity and the paradox. Like, what are these questions and how can we improve things through the spark of deep exploration? And we certainly don't want to decide ahead of time what we're going to do. Never start without a clear purpose. And this is the final one and probably the most important. And, you know, it's really fantastic when we do purpose work with folks. Often they'll get stuck. And, you know, they can't go any deeper. They're like, oh, I've hit the bedrock. I don't understand why this is 9 whys, 3 and I'm done. And usually that's because they got stuck on their own jargon. They were repeating the company slogan. They were just saying the things that have been said in the hallways all along, but it doesn't mean anything to anybody. And instead, we want to move past the ambiguity of jargon and get to a deep internal self-purpose. And we want to understand how we connect that back to the company purpose, because that's how we're going to create deep roots, and that's how we're going to do meaningful work, and that's how we're going to make really killer agendas. Especially in the virtual setting, we can't just look at what's been done before and say, let's recreate that. We need to come back to our purpose. We need to invent from a sense of meaning and start there. So John, what do you think about the 10 principles and liberating structures?
I love them because I mean, to your point, we did produce this blog post on leveraging the child's mind. And as you went through all 10, I was just smiling and thinking about when I most embodied those is when I was a kid. I mean, I didn't have words for it. I didn't have these fancy adult words to describe, but that is being playful. That is being flexible. It's being a kid. And when we're kids, you go talk to a kid right after watching this and they'll surprise you with their ideas and their openness. And they're just a joy to be around. And so I think what's awesome is the reason meetings suck is because they don't follow those 10. And that's what the power of liberating structures will do for not only meetings, but a culture. So I just smirk because I'm like, yeah, it's just adults finally being kids again.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think I'll probably end here on the underlying design elements, only because the rest of the workshop is hands-on practice with about 8 different structures, including purpose to practice and critical uncertainties, which is like a method that is like couldn't be more relevant right now than anything I can imagine. And maybe we'll get into some agreement uncertainty matrix, eco-cycle, lots of fun stuff to dig into. And but before we close out and head on our way to the workshop, I am going to say that really think about these 5 design elements. And so Liberating Structures encourages all facilitators using Liberating Structures to think about how to design their sessions using these 5 principles or these 5 elements. So you always craft an invitation. So Liberating Structures, in the definitions and the descriptions, they will include a default invitation. It is critical that you craft that to be specific and appropriate for your audience. Take the time to respect your participants and craft something that's going to resonate with them deeply. Number 2, distribute participation and roles. That should be very obvious to you. If you aren't doing it, you should start thinking about how you think about who's participating and in what roles and how. Likewise, you want to configure groups. You want to think about, do I randomly create groups? Or do I distribute these groups based on affinities or based on other criteria? We want to also arrange space, and this couldn't be more critical in the virtual environment because space is so critical. How we come to the environment. What is the white space that's created by these various tools? How are people navigating between tool and tool? Your choice of how the tools intersect is a choice of how you arrange the digital space for your participants. And last, how you sequence and allocate time. If you aren't thinking intentionally about your agendas, your break times, how much squish time you have, and how much time you have to react to emerging phenomenons, you really should take time to sit back and really consider those things. And we highly recommend using Session Lab, really great tool. And with that, I think that covers all the stuff I wanted to discuss today. And I really hope that you take some time to look into liberating structures and how it could create new possibilities for you and your company. And thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Hope to see you guys there so we can teach you liberating structures and how to also, the way I look at it is each one is its own awesome ingredient. And by the end of the workshop, because it's hands-on, that you'll be able to custom make your own recipes and dishes for your meeting culture and make sure that your meetings don't suck. So I hope to see you there.